for the visually impaired or the partially impaired, where some of them can see light and
Yes.
some of them can see darkness. So on the front of the banknote, you will see we've printed both, so it's easy for them to make that determination. One of the things that we never talk about is around the size of the banknotes.
Yes.
That's another thing that, and it hasn't changed, but that's another thing that the visually impaired use, because our banknotes, if you see, they are 6 millimeters apart. So the 10 rand is much smaller, and as you go, it becomes the length of it. It's always 6 millimeter apart. So those are just some of the ones that we've got. The additional one where you tilt.
Yes.
Is the security thread. In the security thread, you'll see we've got the numerals. So if it's a 20 rand, you'll have 20. You've got the abbreviation, the SARP. And we've got what we call a Spark Life True Spin.
Yes.
If you tilt the banknote, there is a movement. But
yes.
the tandem of the movement moves with the security thread, and it changes color. So and that's specific for each denomination. It's different for each denomination. So if you do this and you tilt it, you'll see different colors.
Oh, wow. That with all of these features specifically built in for the visually impaired, you spoke about how you had to have consultations. How long were these consultations? Because it seems quite thorough, that what you've done here with these new notes.
We started with this in 2019. And we only issued in 2023.
So 4 years of consultation for these new banknotes. Now, what happens if I've still got the older banknotes? Can I still use it? What should I do with it?
In South Africa, we do not demonetize, meaning that all the series of banknotes are still legal tender. So the old series, like you said, 3 months ago, it's still legal tender. Please use it. We co-circulate, meaning that the previous one and the current one are still can be used, so we can transact with those. So,
but some people have even kept older currency notes, stretching back maybe tens of years. Because they might want to sell it for a higher price or leave it as an inheritance for their children, should they be doing that? Is it something that you should be doing?
Not with these. These are circulation banknotes, and the coin are also circulation coin. So they are worth the value that is printed on it.
Oh.
Once you've got the 10 rand, it's worth 10 rand. Even 10 years down the line, it will
still worth 10 rand.
10 rand.
Now, I wanted to ask, in terms of these old notes, some people keep coins specifically. Do coins also maybe go up in value or not? Or is it the same?
We've got different. If you're talking circulating coins, which were issued now with these banknotes, those they are worth the value that's printed on it.
Okay.
But there are those that you can have a different metal on it made up of gold, and those will be worth much more.
Okay. And we haven't even spoken about the coins. We've spoken so much about the notes themselves. Tell us about the new coins. What are some of the new features, or maybe are there new animals on the new coins?
Yes, coins. We also have a theme, and the theme for these coins is deep ecology. You will see on the 10 cents, we've got the honeybee, which is different from what we used to have. And on the 20 cents, we've got the bitter alu. On the 50 cent, we've got the nice naturako. And on the 5 rand, we've got the southern whale. So it's different. The 2 rand have got the springbok. So that's the family, the theme, deep ecology, that we went on the coin.
And in terms of the coins, do they have security features or not?
They do have security features. Maybe let me talk to the 5 rand.
Yeah.
The 5 rand has got the wording on it, which is the SAP. And when you tilt it, you will see rand or 5 on it. So that's a security feature for the 5 rand.
Okay, now you are joining us this evening for a discussion between the South African Reserve Bank and the Government Communication and Information System on the new currency notes that we have, and coins, by the way, that we have, that have been placed into circulation in early May. Now, if you want to contribute to this conversation, you can send your questions to our WhatsApp line on 065 935 5488. That's 065 935 5488, or call into our studio 0800 142 466. That's 0800 142 466. Now, we're still talking about coins, Pearl. Do we still need the 10 cents and 20 cents coins? Because sometimes you'll go to a shop and then you'll pay and it's 10 Rand 90 and they don't give you the 10 cents, or you don't want the 10 cents yourself. Do we still need them?
Please wait for your 10 cents. It is worth 10 cents. We still need it. We do a lot of research within the SARB where we try to determine the lowest denomination. Should we be phasing it out, or is it still relevant? And for the 10 cent, it's actually still relevant. There are segments of the population that need it and use it. And therefore, hence, we continue with the 10 cents.
I'm not sure. Has the 5 cents coin been phased out?
Yes. A couple of years ago, we stopped minting it. But it's still legal tender. So if you still have it, you can go to the shop and use it, and they should accept it because it's legal tender. Or you can go to your commercial bank and get or exchange it. Okay.
Now, could you please explain to us what happened with the Xitsonga language on the upgraded banknotes? Because we've seen some people on social media and just general discourse saying that the spelling is incorrect on this particular note. Is it incorrect?
Like I said, with the Association of the Blind, we consult PenSALB. So from 2019, the SARB has consulted PenSALB in terms of the languages. Have they changed? And we got approval from PenSALB, and hence we've got this languages printed on the 100 Rand. And therefore, because the SARB, we are not expertise in language, it's important for us to go outside and get that expertise, which is what we did. I know, like you said, there are media complaints around it, but we are working on it, meeting with PenSALB just to understand what could be the challenge with the new spelling.
Okay, now to something maybe a little in society. I've seen people cut up notes and make designs on their bags, on their cars, or something like that. Is it legal to do that?
It's not legal. We've got a policy in the bank called reproduction of images.
Yeah.
And even in the act, that is called defacing the banknote or defacing currency. So you cannot do that. It's a criminal offense in actual fact in the act. We do have a unit within Currency Management Department that is educating the public in terms of if you need to use it for a movie, for example, you need to come to the SARB and get permission to use, and how you should be displaying it as also outlined in terms of the SARB.
And now we are in conversation with the South African Reserve Bank. My name is Neo Budumela regarding the new banknotes that have been issued to the public in early May. Now you can join us for this conversation. You can send in your WhatsApps to 065 935 5488, 065 935 5488, or call us in studio on 0800 142 466, 0800 142 466. Now, coming to you, Rashad, wow, we've been going through quite a lot as South Africans, especially regarding the repo rate. I'm sure every South African listening right now wants me to ask you, when are we going to see a dip in the repo rate? Are we ever going to see it? And what factors would lead to that?
it's very, very important for people to realize that inflation, keeping inflation at a moderate level, which in our definition is about 4.5%, is very important to a functioning economy. And if inflation goes out of control, there is basically mayhem in the economy. People, earn 100 rand today, as it is in some countries with heavy inflation. In a week's time, that 100 rand value, you can only get goods worth 80 rand. In the second week, you can only get goods worth 60 rand. So the first thing that the SARB is trying to do, in line with its price stability mandate, is keep inflation in check. Unfortunately, some of the ways you can, one of the most effective ways you can do that is, if inflation goes up, you've got to increase interest rates as a mechanism, as a tool to bring inflation down. And I think that by the mere fact that we have been tightening, we forecast that within the next 2 years, inflation will come down to the midpoint of the target, which is 4.5%. And if we're confident that inflation is reaching the target, we then don't have to tighten, increase interest rates. In fact, we can even go in the other direction if inflation gets to 4.5%.
And what are the factors that are currently leading to this interest rate that I believe is sitting at 6.8% in April? What are some of the factors?
So, there are, in the best of circumstances, when the SARB, or monetary policy as we call it, works well, is if demand in the economy is much higher than supply. So all of us want to buy generators, and there's only so much we can produce. In that circumstances, maybe generators was a bad example, but in those circumstances, when prices go up well because demand outstrips supply, then using the interest rates works very well. Unfortunately, in this particular instance, the main drivers of inflation has been food. And we know that food hits the poor, particularly because food expenditure takes a disproportionate part of their income. Oil prices have been going up. Oil prices have been going up partly because of the Ukraine-Russian war. So the major impetus for inflation has come from those kind of products. But also, when you have an economy where the exchange rate depreciates, a lot of things you and I consume, like personal care, is imported. When the rand goes from 15 rand to 19 rand 50, those prices come up. So those are some of the key drivers at the moment of inflation.
And are there other tools that we could use to control inflation?
That's a very important question, Neo. I think that from the SARB's point of view, it is limited. The SARB at best can use monetary policy or the interest rate. But there are, in many other countries, there are governments who are trying to look at how you deal with ways of insulating the poor as far as food prices are concerned. There may be in the area of taxes, which is not our area, in the area of fiscal policy. There may be ways and means in which one can attempt, and our government has attempted to do this with oil prices and so on. But by and large, from our point of view, the most powerful tool we have is interest rates.
And now there have been calls for the bank's mandate to be expanded to include things like employment. What is the bank's view on this?
So this debate can get very technical, and let me try to put it in very simple terms. When you make monetary policy. When we as the committee, we are 5 at the moment, when we as the committee sit, and we have to decide what should the interest rate be, there are 2 guiding factors. The one is, the most important is inflation.
Yes.
The second is the state of the economy. And if we think that the economy is robust, and we think that economic growth is going to move in an upward direction, and that is a proxy for employment, then our interest rate decision will be very different, in a different setup where the economy is slowing down. So our mandate that you read out at the beginning, in the interest of sustainable and economic growth, has to take into consideration employment. We have to take into consideration the state of the economy. And the state of the economy has a very important bearing on how we decide what the appropriate interest rate would be. So there's one country in the world, Neo, where there is a more explicit extension, and that is the US, where the Federal Reserve says we're going to look at both inflation and the labor market. But in our case, we are just looking at the economy as a whole, of which the labor market or the employment is an integral part of it. So it's really semantics in some respects.
And what is the bank's view on the state of the economy right now, hand in hand, so to speak, with inflation and interest?
For your listeners who are interested in this, I would encourage them to read the last monetary policy statement. Unfortunately, we are in an economy where our assessment of economic growth for this year is likely to be only around 0.3%. For an economy with an unemployment rate over 30%, this is not a good scenario. We know that in the period 2006, 7, 8, when the economy was growing at 5% a year, it is the first time that we made a dent in the unemployment figures. Our unemployment rate began coming down. So there's low confidence in the economy. Investors are uncertain about a variety of things. We all know that there's load shedding, which is which has constrained the economy to grow, and that means that investment is very low. So the economy is unfortunately not in a good state and makes everyone's lives, including policymakers like us, lives very difficult.
Well, we are in conversation with Deputy Reserve Bank Governor Rashad Cassim and the head of the Currency Management Department, Kgalegi, at the SA Reserve Bank. We do have a caller on the line, Mark from KwaZulu-Natal. Hello, Mark. I'm very well. How are you, Mark? How are you doing? Thank you. Go. Thank you so much, Mark, for that call. Pearl, what do we do about the 10 cents?
It's actually not right for any retailer, taxi drivers, anybody to not accept the 10 cent. It is legal tender, and therefore it can be presented for transaction. We are just doing awareness on the new or the upgraded banknotes and the coin. After that, we will then go around and educate people around all the denominations and that they should be accepted. So that's something that is on the cards, because we have also had complaints around the 10 cent.
And another question on the WhatsApp to the honorable guest and host regarding the old coins ranging from the 1930s to the 1970s. What is the plan regarding these old coins from the bank?
These old coins are still legal tender. Please, if you are banked, you can take it to your commercial bank and they will be able to exchange it. In the Reserve Bank, we have a cash center in Johannesburg, which is open to the members of the public. If you're not banked, then you can go to the Joburg Cash Center.
Now, just coming back to you, Rashad, I have just one more question. Other people have called for the ownership of the bank to be restructured. What would this make a difference?
In my view, it will make absolutely no difference. It is true that it is unusual to have a bank. Most central banks are owned, by governments nationally, but. This is a historical peculiarity that exists in a few countries. But the key thing is, when you hold a central bank accountable, you ask yourself, who is making those decisions about monetary policy, about financial stability? Firstly, the 4 governors are appointed by the president. There are more government-appointed board members on the board than the private sector. All the policy decisions, all the various instruments we have, all these decisions are done by the central bank. It is not the private sector. We operate no differently to any other central bank in the world, where the private sector or shareholders have no role in making policy. There are board members are useful in helping us assess our risk matrix, auditing, and those kind of things. So they're very valuable board members from the private sector who play a very important role in governance. But in terms of policy, it would make absolutely no difference.
And there's been some serious criticism of the bank of late, especially after the 50 BPS that was given. What is the bank's view on this very strong criticism that has come about, that it's anti-poor and so forth?
We should be grateful that we live in a democracy. And I think it is right for the public to be critical of the bank, because it is a critical public that makes us better central bankers. And I think that it's important that we as the SARB engage the public on these issues. So when we reduced the interest rates at the time of COVID, by a couple of 100 basis points, obviously we were the darlings of the public. So, when we reduce interest rates, you go from, 600 basis points to 350 basis points, everyone loves us. When we increase interest rates, we get a lot of criticism, particularly from particular sectors of society. So the poor don't have loans, so they're not affected by the increase in interest. Many middle-class people have loans and they are affected by interest rates. Then there are pensioners who are savers, and they're not affected by increased interest rates. So there are different segments of society. But I think that my appeal to the public is to understand that there are times where we will reduce interest rates once we can keep inflation in check. And the public will benefit from that reduction in interest rates, particularly those who have loans. But there are times where, in order to keep inflation in check, we unfortunately have to increase interest rates. We have to do it in a very responsible manner. But in the long run, as our governor always says, high inflation means high interest rates. So tomorrow, if currently the repo rate is 8.25 and inflation is 6.8, if inflation was 30%, the repo rate may have to be at 40%. So I think this is the important thing. The whole idea is to act in a decisive way so that you can keep inflation low. And one of the reasons why we could bring the repo rate down to 350 basis points is because inflation was low. We managed to keep inflation low. Sometimes you don't have control of inflation, like oil and food, but it's how these things transmit to other prices in the economy.
What has to go right in the economy right now for the repo rate to begin to come down?
So there is not much we can do about the oil price. There is not much we can do about food prices. I think that one thing that's had a negative effect on inflation is, as I mentioned earlier, is the exchange rate. So when investors pick up these very conflicting signals from government about all sorts of issues, if the right agencies in society can communicate more clearly about how we're going to deal with the problem of load shedding, what exactly are the issues, and I think some of that is coming out. Once investors know that we have a plan, that government is serious about sorting out its issues, then there'll be more confidence. So the exchange rate will pick up a bit, and that will put less pressure on inflation. The other thing we also have to do is, it is very important that both everyone in society realize that we cannot have high profit margins, that everyone has to come to the party and ensure that we make some sacrifices to keep inflation in check. Dare I say it, wages, profits, all these have to somehow get some agreement around making sure that we're able to keep inflation in check. I'm not for one moment talking about people whose wages can't even cover their food. I'm talking generally about how we ensure that we can get the economy going, we can get investment in the economy. That investment will increase supply, more production of goods and services will reduce prices. But some of it is short term, and some of it is more long term.
Okay, we have 2 voice notes from WhatsApp. Can we play the voice notes?
Thank you.
Thank you so much for those voice notes. Auspel, what has the SARB done?
I see. There are a few things that we've done. We've been doing activations, so going out, and all the 9 provinces have been covered. Granted, it's not in all the areas within the 9 provinces, but we go around and you will see in the retail stores, in the commercial banks, even small spaza shops, we've handed out posters so that everybody can understand. We've got leaflets where we were going even in the taxi ranks, handing out and explaining the security features. We've been having interviews similar to this, where we are educating the members of the public. And since the launch, which was on the 3rd, because we knew issuance was going to start on the 4th, we've been doing interviews, we've been on social media so that we can just alert, and we've got a TV ad, we've got radio ad, it is out there. It might not be enough, like the caller has said, we might not have reached that place, but I can assure you we will reach every place.
Okay. Now, if you want to see these new notes, you can go to resbank.co.za. That is resbank.co.za, or you can go to their social media. That's on Twitter and on Facebook at SA Reserve Bank. I think I have that right, at SA Reserve Bank. I just wanted to touch on what you said, Rashad, regarding load shedding. How much of an impact is it having on the thinking when we come and think about the repo rate and raising it?
So load shedding has an impact on the economic growth side, and it has an impact on the inflation side. On the economic growth side, as I mentioned earlier, we estimate growth for this year to be 0.3%. Had it not been for load shedding, we think growth would have been about 2.3%. So it takes off about 2%. And the reason it takes off about 2% is we've had many more load shedding days this year than we've had in the past. And if we operate under stage 6, it has a real impact on the economy to produce goods and services. On the inflation side, you asked the previous question, what can we do right now to bring inflation down? We estimate that inflation is 0.5% higher because of load shedding. And the reason for that is very simple, that people who produce small retailers, perishable products that we buy from supermarkets, all are spending a fortune on generators, and those prices have to be recouped recuperated in the selling price. So that's really the effect of load shedding. We think that as we develop renewables and as more comes on stream next year and the year after, load shedding would become less of a constraint on both the economy and on prices.
And now we have a WhatsApp question from Andre. What is the Reserve Bank doing to assist with economic recovery?
So this requires, I guess, another session. The Reserve Bank has a very important tool which we've talked about called the monetary policy tool. This tool is a tool we use to manage what we call cycles in the economy. So an economy goes through cycles. Sometimes the economy goes through a boom cycle. Sometimes the economy goes through a trough. So when we had COVID, the economy tanked for very good reason. So what did the Reserve Bank did? It reduced the interest rates by a few hundred basis points. And that is how the Reserve Bank tries, when the economy is slowing down, it tries to stimulate economic growth. And the way it stimulates economic growth is that if you've got a 1 million rand bond and we reduce the interest rates by 100 basis points, you are paying 1,000 rand less on your bond. Now, you may use part of the 1,000 rand to pay a bit more towards your bond, but you may use some of it to spend. So the Reserve Bank is able to stimulate the economy by reducing interest rates, as well as tightening when the economy is overheating, a term we use. But in order for the Reserve Bank to loosen and stimulate the economy, inflation has to be close to the midpoint. It is very hard for the Reserve Bank to reduce interest rates when the economy is in a recession, but your inflation is at 7%. You want to be in a situation that when an economy is in a recession, your inflation rate is below the midpoint of the target at 4.5, then you can stimulate, or the opposite. You know, when there's economic boom and inflation's going out of hand, we then, there's a term we use, we take the punch bowl away as the party gets hot to kind of cool the economy.
What are some of the other functions of the bank besides the repo rate?
I'm happy that you asked that question, because the bank plays such a broader role than just monetary policy. So the one important part, and it has relevance to what Pearl is talking about, because the Reserve Bank plays a very important role in the national payment system.
Okay.
How we ensure that banks can borrow and lend from each other. How, if you pay, if you use your F&B card at a retailer, and the retailer is with Standard Bank, how all these transactions, payment transactions take place. So one important function is the Reserve Bank sets the terms around the payment systems, how banks interact with each other. The other important role the Reserve Bank plays is that, you know, we talked about price stability and financial stability. If a financial system is not functioning well, as we saw in the great financial crisis in 2018, it can destroy an economy. If there's no proper credit creation, if we cannot borrow, if banks cannot give small firms working capital, the way the insurance market works, we all have insurance. If all those parts of the financial, a broader definition of the financial system, don't work, then the economy will be in serious trouble. So the bank also plays another role in ensuring that the financial system is stable. It does this through a variety of mechanisms. It has a financial stability department. We released now the other day the financial stability report, but it also regulates. It regulates the banks. It regulates the insurance companies, and the bank has a very good history of effectively making sure that the system, the financial system has integrity. We ensure that banks have sufficient capital and liquidity to make sure that your deposits are not at risk, and so on. There's a very important role that Pearl's department plays, and that is currency and so on, amongst others.
We do have a caller, Kgalegi from Pongola. Kgalegi, go ahead. Go ahead, Kgalegi. Go ahead, you can ask your question, Dad. Pearl, another one of the 10 cents coins. I think maybe the question I would also like to add to Kgalegi is, are we able to go to the bank maybe to exchange these coins if people are not accepting them?
Njengoba ngishilo Kgalegi ukuthi lama 10 cent mele asebenze, ayasebenza vele. So mawuya ku amastolo lapha ephungula uthi ubuya ephungula ubatshela ukuthi i-Reserve Bank ishilo ukuthi lama 10 cent ayasebenza. Just for the benefit of others, it is still legal tender, and you can go to the commercial banks. You can come to the or you can go to the commercial banks or to the retailers and do let them know that it is legal tender. They're supposed to take it.
We do have 2 WhatsApp voice notes. Pearl, for the benefit of those who didn't maybe catch us earlier on, could we perhaps go through some of the features for those who are partially sighted?
Okay, there is what we call tactile marks. You'll see it has changed from the previous series. Currently, we are looking at the space in between the tactile marks. So on the 10 and the 20 rand, on the short edge of the banknote, you'll be counting the spaces or the gaps. The 10 rand has got one gap, the 20 rand has got two gaps. The higher denominations, it's on the long edge where we're starting to count again with the one gap. On the 50 rand is one gap, on the 100 is two gaps, and on the 200 it's three gaps. So that's one of the things. The second thing that I spoke about is this see-through perfect registration, where you will see the elementary shapes that we have introduced. So the 10 rand has got the diamond, the 200 has got the oval, so different shapes there, and that is for partially sighted, so that helps. We've got the negative and the positive text. That is the denomination numeral on all the banknotes. So for example, if you look at the 100 rand, there's a positive printing and the negative printing, and that helps for the partially sighted as well.
And again, with the security features, what are some of the security features on the new notes that will protect us from maybe counterfeits or so forth?
I think the question was around the security ink.
Oh, yes.
It's called dye stained. We use a green ink on it. So you will see often that when they bomb the ATM, there'll be a splat of green ink on it. That can be used. We use that to protect the banknote, and therefore that is proceeds of crime. So people will be trying to take it, to use it again, but you will see the remnants of the green ink on it. That, if you do find it, please again go to your local police station. Do not accept it. Look at your banknote so that you can understand that it shouldn't have any remnants of green ink on it. But if you do find it, take it to the police station. And yes, we did consider it during the notes.
And I wanted to ask you as well, what if something maybe happens, or I happen to write on my note? Is it still legal tender? Can I still use it?
You're not supposed to write on
What
your
if it
banknote.
happens?
It's
It
not
happens.
a scribble. In the same way that when you buy your computer, you really look after it. Your TV, you handle it with care. We need to learn to handle our money with care. You cannot scribble on it. There's a lot of paper that you can scribble on it. So I think it's about, and this is part of the education that we take to the members of the public, that it's not allowed to scribble on it.
And are there going to be any more education drives regarding these notes, these new notes that we have? Because clearly there's a thirst for knowledge about them.
Yes, we'll continue to do the drives. This entire month, we've got in Soweto, we've got another one in KZN. So we are going through to all the provinces. We'll be doing this for the rest of the year.
And I wanted you to actually go a little bit back in terms of the security features that we spoke about a little bit earlier. Could you just take us through some of the new features that we have on here, just for a recap?
All right. We've got the true spin and the security threat. This is a tilt feature. You will see if you tilt your bank note, there is a movement, a circle movement, and the security threat also moves. But it also changes in color. You will see on each denomination. For the visually impaired, I spoke about the tactile marks. I spoke about the elementary shapes that we have around the see-through, and I've spoken about the positive and negative text that we have. If you look at behind Madiba, we've got the latent image. That will be seen when you tilt your banknote. There's a hidden writing on it, and it will be the numeral. So if you tilt it, you will see if it's 100 rand, 100 rand written on it. Again, the preamble to the Constitution is in front of the portrait of Madiba and at the back of Madiba.
who designs these notes? Because they really look beautiful. They really do. Who designs them?
Thank you. We've got a unit called the product unit within currency management department. They work hand in hand with SABN, South African Banknote Company, but also the security features. There are different vendors that do the security features. So our responsibility is how will they fit in this banknote that you see here. So those two divisions, the SABN, in case of the coin, it's the SA Mint, and again, our product team within Currency Management Department.
Now, if you want to see these new banknotes, you can go to resbank.co.za, that's resbank.co.za, or you can go to the SA Reserve Bank's social media platforms. I promise you there's so much information on these new banknotes and how you can spot if you have a counterfeit, unfortunately. That is at SA Reserve Bank on Twitter and also on Facebook at SA Reserve Bank. And you can also watch a recording of this interview if you want to go back for any more information on the SA Reserve Bank YouTube page at SA Reserve Bank as well. Now, Rashad, I wanted us to go back to the Reserve Bank. What are some of the mechanisms that you have to protect the value of the currency? I ask this because we have seen the value of currencies plummeting in our neighbor, so to speak.
So there's an important link between what Pearl is saying and what I'm saying. It's one thing for a bank to produce aesthetically beautiful banknotes with all the innovation and security features that Pearl talked about. But though these would be meaningless if you had a central bank that in the eyes of the public, in the eyes of investors, was not credible. Now, what does it mean to be a credible central bank? A credible central bank is a central bank who takes the challenge of inflation very seriously, balancing economic growth considerations. So I think that sometimes countries that suffer from spiraling inflation often has to do with factors beyond the central bank. It could be, there's loss of fiscal credibility. The government is spending at rates that it cannot afford. Its debt goes to kind of record high levels and so on. But in our case, I think that we work very closely with the Treasury, and we try to kind of make sure that we keep inflation in check. We are transparent. We have monetary policy committee meetings. We are accountable to the public. We face the public, the press. We put on our website how we got to our decisions, what our assumptions are. And I think that the mere fact that we're transparent and we're very clear about why we want to keep inflation at a particular level, that insulates or protects a country from reaching inflation levels that will destroy this economy.
Now, you have been listening to a special broadcast brought to you by the SA Reserve Bank and the Government Communication and Information System. Any last thoughts, Rashad?
I think now you've asked all the questions. I'm exhausted so far.
Pearl, any last question? Any last comments?
We've got a mobile app. I want to encourage the members of the public to please download it, and that's where you'll get more information on it.
Okay. You can. What is the name of the mobile app?
Currency app.
Currency app. Currency Z.
mobile app.
Okay. You can find out more about our new currency banknotes at the resbank.co.za or download their mobile app at Currency app. And you can also find more information about the new currency banknotes, about the new banknotes on the SA Reserve Bank's social media. That's SA Reserve Bank on Twitter, SA Reserve Bank on Facebook, and SA Reserve Bank on YouTube. That is the end of our show for tonight. Thank you, Pearl, and thank you, Deputy Governor, for joining us. And thank you, listeners, for joining us for the special broadcast. Also, a big thank you to our technical team for tonight, Renae, Gavin, and Fenki. My name is Neo Budumela. Good evening to you all.